The Great Kite Catastrophe. In the small town of Pineville, all the kids were getting ready for the annual Kite Flying Festival. Every year, the kids would make the biggest, brightest kites they could and compete to see who could fly theirs the highest. This year, best friends Sophie and Jake were determined to win. Sophie had spent days building a massive, rainbow-colored kite that looked like a dragon with flapping wings. Jake, on the other hand, went with a big, shiny spaceship kite, complete with silver streamers and glow-in-the-dark stars. They were sure they had a winning combination. Finally, the day of the festival arrived, and the entire town gathered at Pineville Park. Kids were laughing, running, and holding on to the strings of their colorful kites. Sophie and Jake found a good spot at the top of the hill and got ready for takeoff. "Ready, Jake?" Sophie asked, gripping her dragon kite's string tightly. "Ready, Sophie," Jake replied, holding on to his spaceship kite with a big grin. They both took off running, and soon their kites soared into the sky. The dragon's wings flapped in the breeze, and the spaceship glinted in the sunlight as it zoomed higher and higher. They watched, amazed, as their kites climbed up, passing other kites, drifting higher than the tops of the trees. But just as Sophie and Jake started celebrating, a strong gust of wind swept through the park, tugging on their kite strings with surprising force. "Whoa!" Sophie cried, trying to hold on to her dragon kite as it pulled her forward. Jake laughed, "I guess the dragon really wants to fly." But his laugh turned into a gasp as the wind pulled on his spaceship kite, yanking him forward too. Then, to everyone's surprise, both kids were lifted off the ground. The crowd gasped and pointed as Sophie and Jake soared up, dangling from their kite strings. "Hold on, Jake!" Sophie shouted as they floated above the park, clinging tightly to their strings. "This is amazing!" Jake shouted back, looking down to see their friends waving at them. They floated over Pineville Park, catching sight of all the kites beneath them. They passed a flock of surprised geese, who honked at them in confusion. As they drifted higher, they could see the entire town of Pineville below. They even spotted the ice cream shop where they spent their summers, and the playground where they played after school. The wind finally began to calm down, and their kites gently carried them back toward the park. When they landed, they were met with cheers and applause from their friends and families. Their adventure made them the stars of the festival. The judge awarded them both a trophy, declaring them the High Flyers of Pineville. From that day on, Sophie and Jake were known as the kite flyers who touched the sky, and their friends always asked them, "When's your next flight?"